There are inevitably, inexplicably always going to be quarterbacks shot up the board as draft season wears on because of the shortage at the position. Teams get desperate, they need a dude at the position, but the ramifications of whiffing can set your organization back 3 to 5 years. Michigan's J.J. McCarthy is the latest QB prospect to be cannonballed up draft boards. There's talk of top 10, some even top 3. But when we turn on the film, while don't get me wrong, there are positives, he is not even a top 15 pick. The good on his tape are two things that go hand in hand. He is extremely tough as a quarterback. If he's getting linebacker fire up the middle, or a D lineman is torching his lineman, he will stand in the pocket and get the ball off without falling backwards. This is surprisingly rare even at the NFL level. Some guys usually don't follow through on throws, but McCarthy always does. Connected to this toughness is his aggressive nature over the middle of the field. He'll stand in to rip the ball, and if he sees his guy flash open in that area, he's throwing it for better or for worse. It's easier to project him to a quote-unquote Kyle Shanahan offense, which has a constant barrage of throws up the gut. You need a QB in this offense not just with good accuracy in the area, but who has the mindset that he's gonna fit the ball into the tightest of windows, and that's who McCarthy is. Here's a version of the drift concept, which is a quick-hitting route over the middle, typically off play action. The play action separates the middle of the defense to create small windows over the middle, and while the quarterback isn't going through a typical 1, 2, 3 progression per se, it's up to him to find that small window. You can see the window open up over the middle, and JJ sees the backside linebacker enough that he throws back shoulder to protect his receiver from getting smashed. It's a good rep on film, good to see him understanding the nuances of where the defense is positioned. But the more we watch his film, the more it becomes clear how little he's actually seeing versus just letting it rip. This has been highlighted as one of his best plays during the last month, where he throws this intermediate crosser against man coverage. However, look at the defense. It's one high safety with a robber safety coming down, and he's coming down right into the throwing window. The moment JJ is gearing up to throw, Malik Hartford has eyes on him and is standing directly in the way. However, McCarthy still attempts and completes the pass. This gets into the subjectivity of breaking down film. Some scouts might say that McCarthy is anticipating Hartford turning his head after the throw, but for my money, McCarthy does not see him and just lets this rip. The moment he's triggering to throw, Hartford has eyes on him, but kinda Mitch McConnell's and freezes up. Maybe he can't see over the offensive line and turns his head immediately the moment McCarthy releases. I don't believe there's any way JJ could have known Hartford was about to turn. I think he just didn't see him backside, and really the only way to settle this score and determine whether or not he has plus anticipation is through more film study. Later in the game, Ohio State wants to make sure the same crosser doesn't beat them, so they pre-rotate their robber safety. It's now Sonny Styles. Pre-rotated meaning he's not coming from depth, and watch what they do. Now it's Styles who's playing the middle, and Jordan Hancock is playing outside leverage to force the receiver inside. Then he switches with Styles to play the robber, so Ohio State can still guard the crosser and the middle. This plays out in really the opposite way as the previous example, where McCarthy should see Styles as his back turned, so he really should throw the crosser now, but doesn't. He also has the shallow kinda open and the check down to his back open as well, but instead breaks the pocket, and while he shows off his athleticism and ability to extend the play and run, these processing errors continue to pop up on film. Processing the field will have to be one of his biggest strengths in the NFL. He does have some movement ability, but far from anything special. He's gonna have to dominate by going through his reads from the pocket, but right now, he can't. There are plenty of times where he doesn't throw where the play is designed to go. Michigan is a classic quarters beater here in Mills, a post and a dig, and Alabama is playing 4 deep quarters. The reason Mills works against quarters is the cornerback is coached to maintain outside leverage to send the post to the safety up top, but if the safety is preoccupied by the dig, that tells McCarthy to hit the post deep, but he doesn't. Alabama is playing quarters, but really ends up bracketing the dig, so it's on McCarthy to read the body positioning of the safety, and if he's not sprinting backwards, he needs to unleash the beast. There are multiple versions of him failing to read the open big post and proving that he struggles to read different levels of the field. A concept like this isn't really even asking him to go through a progression. It's really just reading the post safety to see if the big alert post is open, and you can see when the safety is occupied and the corner is outside leverage. All McCarthy needs to do is see this, but he doesn't, and the big plays get squandered. This is what drives coaches crazy, and this is the kind of thing that gets you benched. When offensive coordinators scheme open concepts and you're not hitting them, you won't play for long. I believe a huge part of his problem connecting with open receivers are due to his struggles reading safety rotations. Washington is showing just one high safety to snap, and Michigan has what ends up being a similar post-dig concept that conflicts the safety, just from different sides. If the safety bites down on the deep cross, the big alert post will come wide open. But as McCarthy is about to snap the ball, Washington rotates by rock and rolling their safeties to account for the motion. And by the time he flips his back on play action, the coverage looks the same, but different. Instead of snapping his eyes to Austin Turner and seeing him flat-footed and ready to drive on the crosser, instead of stepping up and sitting in this pocket, JJ just takes off and leaves another big play on the field. These processing errors lead to bad accuracy. When he doesn't realize the exact type of coverage he's facing, it affects the play, because his receivers are reading things correctly. This is cover 3 zone rip-liz match, where Washington has the 3 deep in zone, but instead of buzzing Dominique Hampton to the flat like in typical zone, he's matching Samaj Morgan in man. This puts him about 10 yards off Morgan, who can either sit down or break out. And when he sees a zone corner outside and Hampton deep, he rightfully sits down, but McCarthy incorrectly thinks he'll run outside on the option and misses the throw. These kind of processing errors aren't quite as bad as just plain old inaccuracy. Processing can be taught and improved, even though it's definitely a red flag on film. But McCarthy pairs his processing errors with that inaccuracy, and it leads to some ugly reps on tape. Here is a similar option concept where Colson Loveland can either sit down or break out, and now since it plays out like man, Loveland is going to run away from the linebacker, so breaks out. But the accuracy is not precise, leading to what should have been an interception. Throwing to the correct shoulder is critical in the NFL. It's the difference between a touchdown and interception because the windows are that small, and McCarthy just doesn't demonstrate high-end accuracy consistently or at all. Michigan has switched vertical seams from their tight ends. With one high safety, the corners are going to play outside to funnel those seams inside, so it's on McCarthy to move the safety with his eyes. He doesn't. And when Minnesota kind of blows the coverage and leaves Loveland open, it's on him to throw it back shoulder up the field away from the safety. But once again, he doesn't do that either, and it leads to an incomplete pass and what should have been a hospital ball. To take his game to where it needs to be, he has to turn into a rhythm thrower, and that's just not what he showed us at Michigan. He's bad at processing, he's inaccurate, and quite often those go hand in hand and negatively impact the other. Again, we have this Mills-esque concept where we have the big post and a crosser that cuts back. Once we see the backside safety flat-footed and staring at the crosser, the ball needs to come out now. Not a lot of quarterbacks can wait any longer than this since they don't have the arm strength, and JJ certainly doesn't. And to compound his lack of arm strength, he takes too long to process, so he has to really bomb the ball down the field. And yeah, it's a completion, but in no world are you trying to throw an open alert post back shoulder. He's had very low interception totals in his college career, so he's good at taking care of the ball. But when really deep diving into his film like we're doing and discovering all of these processing issues, part of the problem is that he's just not aggressive enough at times. We saw that a lot with those post routes, and he's not able to push the ball down the field, which is also, I hate to say, a red flag. He doesn't throw outside the numbers very well. He doesn't throw with great anticipation. We can see it on this comeback route outside, and there are just a million different examples of him trying to hit a receiver and failing miserably. I'm not really sure what he excels at despite his toughness and aggression over the middle, and remember, I'm not even saying accuracy over the middle. He has some decent speed, but nothing to write home about. I would love to sit down with a GM, if there actually is one willing to pick him in the top 10, and ask them what they see, cause I am genuinely curious. JJ's level of play isn't high, and he doesn't have a lot of tools. Usually you get one or the other, Honestly, you're supposed to get both if you're picking in the top 10, but I just don't see it on his film. The one thing that you can say about him is that he is a winner. He brought Michigan to the chip and won it. Harbaugh says he's the best Michigan quarterback in school history. Everywhere you turn, people are in love with the guy, but the film doesn't lie. I believe that the draft cycle has benefited him more than anybody, and because we always have a shortage of quarterbacks in the NFL, his stock has shot up way more than it actually should. If a team drafts him top 10, top 5, top 3, hell, I wish them the best of luck, but if it were up to me, I'm not taking him anywhere in that neighborhood. The only man that can control his fate is the man himself. So JJ McCarthy, it's time to put on, shut the YouTubers up, and ball out.